I'm so excited to be joined today by these three amazing Hearst Lab founders, and we're going to dive right in. When we talk about innovation, we often focus on technology, but real innovation is about rewriting systems of work, infrastructure, and access that weren't designed for everyone. Each of our panelists saw a rule that wasn't working and decided to rebuild it. Milena had to prove that there is, in fact, a strong pipeline of female talent in tech. Basha had to tackle the belief that it's big law or bust. And Kaitlyn had to change a manual industry to digital to show an old school industry that AI is not the enemy. Before we dive in, I'd love to have you each give us a 15-second overview of what you do and why it matters, and maybe you can tell us the name of your businesses too. I'll start with Milena.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Milena Berry, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of PowerToFly, proud Hearst Lab company, proud Hearst Ventures company, and it's just so lovely to be here in this room full of women. At PowerToFly, very much like Hearst Lab, we believe that talented women are everywhere, but opportunity is not. And so we set out to create a platform, a community of working women, and we monetize this by connecting companies to that female talent that we source from all over the world via exceptional events, via normal recruiting strategies, and of course our expert network.
And Milena, you told me yesterday that to date you've put over $1 billion in the pockets and wallets of women, and that's a big accomplishment worth celebrating.
Thank you. Thanks for calling that out. We're very proud of that milestone.
It's amazing. Kaitlyn.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Kaitlyn Albertoli, co-founder and CEO of Buzz Solutions. We're a very proud Hearst Lab company as of the end of last year, and very grateful for the Hearst Lab support. At Buzz Solutions, we're a visual AI platform analyzing infrastructure inspections data. So we work with data collected from drones, helicopters, fixed-wing aircrafts, and static cameras for mandated utility infrastructure inspections. We're helping reduce power outages, forced shutdowns, and wildfire risk on the utility grid.
Thanks, and Basha.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me. I am Basha Rubin, CEO and co-founder of Priori, OG Hearst Lab company from 2017. We help corporate in-house legal teams like Hearst reduce their outside counsel spending through a global vetted network of talent and software solutions that support RFPs and outside counsel management. Many of our clients are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to over $1 billion on outside counsel every year, and we are able to help drive 30 to 50% savings.
Thank you. Let's dive right in. Innovation has inspired each of your businesses, but your journeys haven't been without challenges. I'm going to ask you each to tell us about the challenges and resistance, many cultural, that you have faced. Milena, I'm going to start with you, as you've worked to create access, equal access to opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the world's kind of changing, and we've seen some waves of back and forth on this, but very early on when we started, we really believed that one of the ways to bring diversity to corporations is by opening yourself to remote talent, not only within, the immediate vicinity and allowing people to work remotely from the tri-state area, but looking in places like Saudi Arabia and Botswana and Latin America. And it's been a big part of our mission that we can kind of spread, again, access and economic opportunity by opening ourselves to hiring those folks in those locations. This was not something that everybody wanted to do back in 2014. There was a very, the beginning of that movement of we can create remote teams, like, I don't know, Automatic is probably, or Elastic is one of the biggest companies now that are really proving that model, but a lot of companies really wanted to be co-located. And that's been something we've had to overcome since day one. Of course, then COVID hits. Everybody started to work remotely. We saw a real pickup of our business as well. And then things are shifting back up again with everybody going back in offices as well. I think it really is a detriment to the diversity that you can bring in the organization, to the talent, which is, again, at this point, not only in your nearest geographic location, and you have to go further to find it and create systems to work with distributed teams if you want to have the best team out there.
And what about the anti-DEI moment that we are in today?
I mean, it's tough. It's really kind of it's hard to navigate it. I think it's really important that we understand what is what our values are and what our mission is, and to stay behind it and to be really, really strong about it. But we've had to change how we talk about it. We've had to change our language, and that's felt a little yucky sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like for those of you who don't know the story, one of the first executive orders that got sworn this year was around if you're a government contractor and you have DEI initiatives, your government contracts would be cut. And so a lot of companies had to do this backwards, backwards performative stuff, I should say. Like they had to performatively undo their DEI commitments. And that's been really hard for us. 40% of our customers were government contractors.
You mentioned yesterday, too, that both economic uncertainty and the changes that AI is bringing to the workforce are creating headcount questions that are impacting your business as well. But Kaitlyn, I wanted to ask you about how attitudes towards AI have required navigation in your space, too. I know that there's a big human element in your quest to introduce softwares to the utility space, and maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, great question. So maybe to take a step back and talk about the utility inspection landscape, because maybe many of us aren't familiar with it. Utilities are mandated to inspect today 20% of their infrastructure per year. In the US, there's about 5.5 million miles of distribution line, and there's several 100,000 miles of transmission line. You also think about substations, generation, it continues to increase. But that today is not enough to be able to understand the true risk profile that is currently present on our grid infrastructure. More than 40% of assets deployed in the field today are beyond their end of life. And because of increasing stresses and strains that we're seeing on the physical grid, we're seeing some of these assets fail 5 to 10 years now before their expected end of life, which means we're seeing a rapid acceleration in failures of physical components on the grid, which is both impacting our reliability and also creating risk for more outages, more grid-sparked wildfires, and longer times for storm restoration. So I think all of that context looks at then we need a lot more workers to be able to help solve some of this problem, both to inspect more and then also to identify the areas that do pose the most critical risk so they can get out there and conduct maintenance. But between now and 2030, there's an expected 80,000 lineman worker shortage in the US. Today, it's more than 50,000. The number continues to increase year over year. And there's only 7,000 linemen who are graduating from lineman school. To make matters worse, there are also a rapid age of retiring of linemen. The average age of a lineman today is about 52 years old, and they're expected to retire in the next 5 to 8 years. So that's creating this really big gap of both labor, and then also it's going to create a big knowledge transfer issue as the younger generations coming right out of trade school. So that's where there's a need for automation that's very quickly coming onto the scene, and that was really the crux of where Buzz launched. However, you're looking at people that have been in their industry doing this job for 30, 40 years. Oftentimes, they're using pen and papers to analyze the inspection images or look through binoculars to actually draft inspection reports. So how do you get pen and paper to an AI automated solution? And that's been a big transition for us. Maybe to provide one specific example, I had a lineman who was in desperate need of our solution. He couldn't scale his inspection program because there was so much data, and he said swimming in data. It was a big problem for him. But he was afraid of AI. He said, it's some Terminator stuff. I'm afraid to to give over my work to something I don't know and I don't trust. And so we've spent a lot of time bringing more trust and credibility by bringing the human along, saying, we'll analyze the images for you, but at the end of the day, you get the final decision on do we take action on this or not. And I think that's helped build more trust and credibility.
The action still stems from a human, and that's a message that we're all figuring out how to send in this moment of AI innovation in all of our spaces. But Kaitlyn and Basha, I asked you both how your identities as a female have impacted your journeys as founders. And I would have expected that either of you may say, well, the utility space is very male dominated, or the law space, which I actually learned yesterday, is pretty 50-50. But you actually both said something else. And Basha, I want to let you tell us about that first.
You're making me remember what I said yesterday. Man, this is a real challenge. No, I think it was about fundraising.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I will say that I graduated from law school with my co-founder in 2010. I never really thought about my identity as a woman in the legal space in almost any way. The graduating class from all the top law schools is 50-50. I think, as we discussed yesterday, there's a problem, I think, as young lawyers go to big law firms and the childbirth years intersect with the years that you need to be really working your butt off in order to make partner. But I was off of that journey. And my co-founder, Mira, and I, in 2017, went out to raise our seed round. Unbeknownst to both of us, we were pregnant. Well, we both knew that we were pregnant, but not that the other person was pregnant. And we had put ourselves in a little bit of a funny position because we hadn't raised money for the first 4 years we'd been in business. We were looking for product market fit. We weren't sure that we wanted to go down the venture capital route. And so we were already a little bit of an odd duck in a system that likes convention. They want to pattern match. Many of you are probably VCs or founders, but pattern matching what's been successful before. And having been in business and never raised any money for 4 years already makes you look a little unusual. And then having two very pregnant female founders also makes you a little bit unusual. And so we have many stories, but just a couple of highlights. One was the investor who said, "This seems like a really nice lifestyle business for two moms."
So rude.
So rude. Another one said, everything makes sense. Your numbers are good. There's a big opportunity here, but my spidey sense isn't tingling. Number one, like, ew, keep your spidey sense away from me. But also, they were saying something, which is we didn't look like the model of success that they've seen in the past. And so just to shout out Eve in the audience, we came to Hearst Lab when we were about, and I say we because our babies were born 12 days apart in August and September of 2017, about 3 weeks postpartum, came to the tower to pitch, and Eve led our seed round, and infinitely grateful to Hearst and Hearst Lab for that. But let me tell you that we had no success when we were in our second and third trimester of fundraising, and I don't think that is a coincidence.
Kaitlyn, you also added that you felt as though your age had an impact on your fundraising.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think not presenting in the way that's maybe typical for the company you're building or the industry that you're in. We had some interesting experiences early on. I don't look like someone maybe who traditionally would come from the utility space. I don't have 20 years of a utility experience and background. But I think what was interesting is when we were early stages of launching Buzz, we recognized that we spoke with 30, 35 of the largest utilities, and they said, we don't care how this problem gets solved. We don't care what it looks like. We just need to solve this problem. But I've had very similar stories, largely actually from the investor community. It's when you're going out to raise money, if you haven't experienced the problem or it's not, you don't have that depth of trust in the industry that you're going after, it's definitely a little more challenging. How do you build and establish your credibility in that space? And so it was very interesting. Many of our first hires were people that had 20, 30 years of utility experience and were able to bring that knowledge to the table. We were able to bring them into some of those investor conversations. But the same thing applies now in the utility space. It's interesting. many of our customers are the ones that are speaking on our behalf today. So I didn't actually bring in our first marketing person until after we had our first utility success story, because we recognize that in a space that's so built on trust and relationships and reputation, that we didn't want to go out and market something until we actually had that credible story to tell, and we can let those customers go out and speak on our behalf. So I'd say really the combination of both of those things were what we had to recognize early on, both on the fundraising side and then also on the marketing side too.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up marketing. I want to move on to how all of your businesses have evolved towards scale. We all know that with investors and clients come pressure to protect the essence of your idea and to evolve it at the same time. Milena, I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about how your idea has had to change for your business to win key clients.
Yeah, so early on, again, we were really focused on bringing mostly kind of staff augmentation level solutions, and we were focused on talent really distributed and remote from all over the world. Right around our Series A, which was in 2014, diversity was a big topic in the news. All the big companies were doing their diversity reports, and it turned out that they were all looking for a vendor like us to help them with diversifying their tech teams and their G&A teams and their go-to-market teams, but they didn't care about their contingent workforces. That was not part of their stats in any way. So they cared about their FTEs, full-time employees, right? And so we set out to evolve our solution to be able to meet that demand. And it was really hard. There is a reason why for the FTEs, the stats were what they are. There's a lot of systemic barriers, a lot of where do people live? Do they live near them? How does the interview loop goes, etc. And we've had to really kind of build a whole new suite of solutions to fulfill that demand.
And sometimes that has even meant cutting your own tech out of the process.
Absolutely, yeah, and kind of leaning on services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to head into our lightning round. We have a few minutes left. Kaitlyn, I'm going to start with you. I want to ask you a little bit about how you set up your team to encourage ongoing innovation.
We found there's sometimes a gap between what's needed today and how do you innovate to solve a quick problem for the customer versus the cutting edge of AI and what's the art of the possible. So figuring out how to innovate for what's needed today versus what's needed for 3 to 5 years is often what I'm asking my team to do on an ongoing basis.
Great. Milena, I want to ask you about one of your biggest personal leadership challenges that you shared with me yesterday. Maybe you can give a brief a look at how that challenge has changed your leadership style.
Sure, yeah. I don't only have a broken foot, but a few years ago, 22 actually, right around the time I was raising our Series B, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I went through treatment. I'm a survivor. I'm good. I was very lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. But it was, thank you. Get a memo if you haven't. Don't skip on your memos for sure. I was diagnosed at 45, mother of 4. I mean, it was hard together with scaling a business, running a Series B, and all that. And I think what that process told me is a couple of folds. On one side, I really didn't skip a beat to take care of myself personally in order to, proceed with all the Series B goals and everything. And I think that kind of caught up with me later. So I really want to encourage folks to kind of take care of themselves when they need to, in order to kind of, be more sustainable in the long term. But more importantly, I really think it transformed my leadership style from being in every customer call, in every team meeting, in every part of the business. Even when we're 250 people, I was still very hands-on. And that really forced me to take a step back and to say, hey, I can really invest my time in my leaders, into my one-on-one with my leaders, into the leadership meetings, into the all hands, and really kind of trust more that that work is going to then trickle down in the impact that we all need as a company. And so it was, transformative.
Yeah. Milena, I want to ask you too. What's one rule that you hope the next generation won't have to navigate?
That your identity influences your opportunity. I would really like to see a world in which, not just about gender, but about race, sexual orientation, gender orientation, immigrant status, disability or health status, that, our opportunities are equal.
And Basha, I want to ask you the opposite. What is one rule that you hope that the next generation does have to navigate? And this is going to be a little controversial.
I think I very controversially yesterday said I like in-person work. And I really don't believe that you can enter the workforce remotely and learn how to navigate how you should behave differently in the office, what your role is, how you can have context about the company more broadly beyond your individual role. And we are a remote company because during COVID, none of us knew what was going to happen. But I honestly think it has significantly impeded our ability to innovate, our ability to pivot, our ability to nurture young talent. So much so now that we typically don't hire people in the first few years of their career because we have found that we do not have the resources as a small company in order to be able to support them in becoming the professionals that they need to be. And I do think that is a real loss for us because I think that young talent has a lot to offer, but we just can't be successful in the way that we need to be. I also think that it is generally not great for culture for people to be sitting in their houses by themselves on their laptops and, whatever, Robert Putnam, Bowling Alone. We need to be together, otherwise society is going to fall apart. And also, I think in order for small companies to be successful, it's really important.
I hear some alignment in the room. We are going to go debate this backstage, but just to wrap things up, what we've heard today is that innovation isn't just invention, it's conviction. It's the courage to question systems and the discipline to rebuild them. Thank you all for showing us what rewriting the rules really looks like.
Thank you.
Thank you.